Solid Waste Management Authority meeting today, Tuesday, July 18th. It is 4 o'clock. We call this meeting to order. Here, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Tompkins.
Here.
Commissioner Starkey. Here. Commissioner Inskor.
Here.
Chair Short.
I am here. If you would all join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It is now time for a closed session. I know it's not on the agenda, but should we have some public comment for our closed session items?
Yeah.
See anybody in chambers with us? Is there anybody online with us for public comment? No? Okay, we will then retire into closed session at this time. 5, we are convening into our open session of the Delaware Solid Waste Management Authority and proceed with any public comment. Any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority in any manner on or off the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to make their comment. Is there any public comment? Do we have anybody online? McKinsey? Nobody online. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda, we have item 2.1, which is approve the minutes of the regular session of Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. Item 2.2, approve payment of claim number 9580 to U.S. Bank, in the amount of $13,247.70. Item 2.3, approve payment of claim 9581 to U.S. Bank, in the amount of $1,903.24. 2.4, approve 3 authority allocated bid pools for the Delaware County Fair. 2.5, approve budget transfer for $269,367 and an additional budget transfer of $2,571. There is no public comment, so we'll bring back the board.
Chair, I make a motion to approve consent.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Kara, would you pull the vote, please?
Commissioner Tompkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Brito?
Yes.
Commissioner Insport?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Director's reports.
McKinsey, could I have the PowerPoint, please? Okay. You have a mouse?
Looks like it's up on the podium.
Okay. So, welcome to the summer. Fires and floods. That's what we got. So, during this past month, new K-rails have been installed near the landfill to try to impede traffic and squatters. On July 5th, we had 3 recycling bins that were on fire as we went into the transfer station in the morning. Some juvenile individual lit off some fireworks inside a couple of cardboard bins and one of the recycling bins. And fire department came, put out those fires. And Recology is repairing those bins. We also had a significant fire on the 11th of July as we were having a staff meeting. One of our staff noticed flames coming, well, significant amount of smoke coming from the forest between the Delaware County Transfer Station and Benson Street. And Kira and I stayed after, met the fire department who were attending to the fire, made sure that they didn't need further access, but they put out the fire pretty quickly. But that was one of several little fire spots that we did find throughout the property. It's not the first time people have set fires. It's one of the largest, but not the first time. We also had a major water pipe leak starting last Friday, and the repair investigation began later that day. First Service was working on it, so the water was on and off over the weekend. We had 2 porta potties delivered on Monday because we didn't know how long we were going to be figuring this thing. The pipe that was ruptured runs between the main building of the Delaware County Transfer Station and the administrative offices. And so that pipe runs underneath one of our most heavily used paved access routes. And so we were very concerned that we might have to disrupt operations traffic for an extended period of time. Thankfully, the ruptured elbow, here I have, we'll show and tell, was discovered, and that's close to the Delaware County Transfer Station main building, so we did not have to bring up any of the asphalt. Really happy about that. We'll have to repair the sidewalks and install some additional berms to make sure people don't drive over that area, and we'll have to use some extra gravel over the top of the repaired area to make sure that there's further damage. But I'm very grateful to First Service and to Hambros for their prompt attention to this very urgent matter. And then finally, just today, we introduced a new QR code at the, so this is now at our rates at all of our transfer stations. You can scan that with your smartphone, and it'll bring up a link that'll take you straight to our rate sheets, and you can choose the rate sheet of the facility you're at, and you can look up our rates. So that's now at our gates, and
Works.
it works. So thanks to Andrew Butcher for his ongoing help with our IT. That brings that portion of the director's report to a close. So moving on, other things I haven't mentioned. We had a surprise cash count on the end of June, and once again, it was down to the penny. New staff doing the cash count, but very glad that our accounting staff is continuing to stay on top of those things. The services provided by the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority are provided without a penny of taxes, and we provide the required monitoring, accounting, and reports to overseeing agencies. And the per ton rates charged at authority managed facilities continue to be lower than rates charged for equivalent services in Humboldt or Curry counties. Community events, there was a big cleanup on July 5th. I certainly appreciate the Redwood Parks Conservancy and the city crews and volunteers, including those organized by Supervisor Starkey, to help with those cleanups. Very much appreciate that. Also, we have the fair coming. The first weekend in August, we'll be there. Once again, proud sponsors of the fair, and we'll be promoting that QR code as well as other information. Thank you for approving the consent agenda. Those were budget transfers. There were more budget transfers than usual, and some of them were larger. This is a common thing at the end of the year. As you may know, our largest expense month after month is paying Hambro WSG for their good services at the Del Norte County Transfer Station. But because that is essentially about 2/3 of our annual budget, we always need to make an adjustment at the end of the year, and it's a big one. So that's what just happened. Let's see, I mentioned the landfill issues. We'll be talking about consideration of an amendment to the approved purchase agreements for 2520 Old Mill Road later. Regarding facilities, I mentioned the fires and the leaks. And then finally, I'll also mention that temperatures are going up inland. And so we have a heat illness prevention plan addendum that we'll be adding to our injury illness and prevention plan, but you can see the basics are outlined in the report. Bottom line is that we make sure that our employees have at least 2.5 gallons of water before they go to an outlying station. We've gone through this in our safety meetings, but essentially use the water to moisten hats, necks, and wrists. Drink at least 1/4 quart of water an hour if the temperature is over 80 degrees. If the temperature is over 95 degrees, then we start having an on-call protocol, meaning that they're single-person facilities. They need to contact the on-call person, and they're in regular communication so that if things get in any way dicey, we have a person on their way. There is a mandatory 10-minute rest in the shade every 2 hours until the temperature drops below 95 degrees, and we've been very clear that if a person is resting due to heat stress, they are to remain resting and ask customers to wait, because it's not going to be okay to have them just running into the sun every time that there's a customer. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I can move on to the financial reports.
Any questions? No? Go right ahead with the plans.
All right. We have $1.822 million in the bank. Oh, sorry. Okay. And $198,000, that's our cash flow. Looking at our accounts aging summary, again, thanks to Kathy Brewer for her good practices on our accounts. Looking at claims approved by director, once again, you'll see the largest expenses for Hambro WSG for the good services they provide at the Del Norte County Transfer Station, and to the Del Norte County Auditor for the interfund cost plan for the services of IT, auditor, HR. Moving on to item 3.4, looking at our reports for this last month. Very busy month. We're doing a lot of business. That's typical for the summer, but it continues to be very busy, and our gate staff are working very hard. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anything from the commissioners? Okay.
Okay.
We'll do it for the financials. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
All right. So moving on to item 5.1, At the last meeting, Greg Setner asked that we address our procedures for approving and maintaining authority charge accounts for commercial customers. So before you, under item 5.1 is a summary of those policies. In general, we believe that there isn't really a need to change these policies. If we've had complaints, they mostly fall into two categories. One category is customers want short-term accounts. Another category is they want us to accept checks from Oregon. In the first case, the short-term accounts, we have to keep these records for every commercial account for at least 5 years. So it's a long-term commitment for us, and we rather expect the commercial business, it's a service provided to the community. We provide what I think are favorable terms in that we only charge late fees if we haven't been paid in 60 days. Most folks, after 30 days, you start getting the late fees. Now it's a 10% late fee, but we've already given you a month grace. So that's one issue. But the short-term requests are usually from people who don't live in town. And my perspective is credit card works, a check works, an open check works. So we have options to receive payment, so long as they're willing to commit to payment. But a short-term account, say less than 2 months, for a big job, for a person who lives out of town, can be problematic to collect. And we need to keep those records for at least 5 years. So that's a level of service that we haven't ventured towards because it seems that the costs outweigh the benefits. So for those reasons, we think the current policies that are in place are adequate. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
So how much demand have we had? How often do people ask for these short-term accounts in your recollection?
During the summer, we probably get 4, 5, 6 requests.
Okay, so there's a few.
There are a few, and oftentimes it's folks who are either have recently acquired property or are essentially turning the property over. They're taking the property, they're trying to clean it up, they're trying to turn it back onto the market. And so some of those folks don't live here and actually have very little connection to our community. And so that's the risk, is that you have a person who somehow owns the property, doesn't live anywhere near here, wants a short-term credit for $5,000, $10,000, and then they sell the property and we're chasing them. So to us, it's a credit card works, checks work.
I think what you said is reasonable. Makes sense that it's a higher risk to the agency. So, thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Ted? Ted, can you tell me what is, you mentioned the record retention a couple of times. It seems like everything's pretty much digital nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
What does that record retention look like for the agency? I mean, we're not stacking boxes full of papers for 5 years.
We are. We are. We have a lot of paper records. I have not inquired to the extent that we might be able to have digital records and record those accordingly, but we do send out paper bills. It's not all digital. So I could inquire about that, but I don't know the answer.
Okay. Just curious about that. I know, reading over what our procedures are and just judging from my own experience, I have vast experience. I've cleaned up one property. And I know that with my family that were, I handed my credit card here to go to the dump as I'm running the equipment to clean up the property. If we would have abided 100% by the rules, I would have been able to do that. I would have had to get off the equipment, make the run myself, because I'm the one with the picture ID, name on the credit card. That would have been an absolute pain in the neck for me. I didn't attempt to ask for an account or anything like that. But this cleanup was around $20,000. So it would have been a short-term thing, but to have an account there where I had a a couple of different people running to the transfer station for me would have made the project quite a bit easier. But if we would have had to adhere to those rules, like I gave my son my credit card and he was able to run for me and use my credit card just fine, and it all worked out. But if our gate staff were to, you know, hold people to the letter of our procedures, it would be kind of a pain. So I just, that's kind of why I wanted to explore this discussion. While I really don't want to see us keep boxes and boxes of records for years and years in the future, it seems like there would be some sort of solution to aid in those people that are wanting to do these kind of one-time big cleanup things. Like, I knocked down a building, I found a boat that I didn't know was there, and a few vehicles. So it turned into kind of a big deal, and it was only one summer. So it wouldn't be a long-term contract, but at the same time, if I was able to identify some haulers for me and they were able to run on my account, it would have made the process quite a bit easier. So that's why I was kind of hoping to open up this conversation here, see if there would be something that could, you know, be some middle ground with the gentleman that came to us. I don't know what his particular circumstance was, or you know, why he couldn't
That being
write a blank check. I know the blank check thing kind of really just like we're up to $4,000 a week for a paper check. That kind of seems kind of risky to me, but
it's very accommodating. You're right, it is a little risky, but as you point out, we try to strike a balance, and you give a good example of the ways that we can work with customers who we know, who live here, and we can work with many circumstances, but it has to be centered around, we're incurring a debt, how is that debt going to be resolved?
Sure.
And that's a serious conversation. It's not a maybe, right? And there are a variety of different options, and I acknowledge that it would be easier. But in these circumstances, especially where you have out-of-town banks, it becomes a question of how do we assure ourselves that we're actually going to get paid? When a person lives in the community, that's very different than when they don't have any direct contact to the community and they're interested in opening an account for a few weeks and then being gone. And that's really what they want. And that just feels risky to me.
It sounds, yeah, it's totally sounds reasonable, your assertion there. I get that. But just wanted to see.
What I will do as a follow-up, because I hear what you're saying, I'll ask Kathy to review this portion of the meeting, and we'll talk about what options we might have that might be able to split the difference. But I'm not immediately thinking of what that might be. Do you have any suggestions?
I really don't. I was hoping for the expertise of the people in the room. Actually, I think that if I was to go say, you know, shake your hand, say, hey, trust me, I'm going to spend about $20,000 here dumping stuff here at the transfer station. That would be great for me. Obviously, that's not good business practice. But I just wondered if there could be like a deposit put down kind of thing, only local people only. But you know, as we have it now, you have to be a commercial entity, which, you know, obviously I'm not. So I just kind of curious what people thought. Maybe we'll just leave it the way it is, because there's not a huge ask for that kind of
and it's worth
service.
it's worth remembering one of the customers who was asking about this, they don't have an account. The reason why they don't have an account is we have a rule that was established by a previous board, basically saying 3 holds and you're out. You have 2 holds, your account is being placed, because what was happening at the time is that 10-15% of our administrative assistants' time was just chasing the accounts that were being placed on hold and then coming off on hold and again getting back on hold. And after a while, you don't get the sense that they're really serious about paying them. And so what is the point of the account? And so those accounts were closed, and one of the people who had their accounts closed was dealing with an out-of-town contractor who wanted them to do a big cleanup job, and they didn't pay him. And so their account closed, and they're lamenting, and their solution is, so why don't you give them the account? And the answer to me is, because I saw what happened.
You make a good point. It reminds me of an administrator that told me once, 3% of the employees here drive 90% of my work. So I guess wrap my head around what you're saying there.
And just as not the option that people want, but there is another option. They contract with Recology, and they get a 40-yard dumpster, and they spend the $1,800, and they fill it up, and it doesn't go away if it doesn't get paid for. And so we can't do that. Somebody doesn't pay us, we have to chase them. And especially if they're out of state or whatever, let's face it, you can chase somebody around Delaware County for a long time trying to get them paid, much less somebody that's outside of it. So it's not like that we're the only option for cleanups. I mean, you can contract with Recology, get it. I mean, I've had both done with projects that I've had done. I've had contractors who contracted and had a bin dropped and they filled it up, and I've had a contractor who brought their own trailer and they brought it to the transfer station. So I've seen both, and sometimes it's probably a matter of which is easier.
If I'm not mistaken, that's how the county does it when they have to clean up a property. They put a bin out there, fill it up, and whoever owns properties, you can build sooner or later.
Well, it's a good discussion.
Yes, I appreciate the discussion, all the comments made. So we will just say that there is no action on item 5.1 and move to 7.1. We have approved amendment to purchase agreements for 2520 Old Mill Road, and authorize the director to sign on behalf of the authority.
So this is an item that was approved quite some time ago, essentially directing legal counsel to establish these purchase agreements, which have been reviewed by the board. And the amount of the purchase agreements are being modified to address an outstanding tax lien filed by the state franchise tax board, and that would be added to the agreed purchase price paid directly from escrow. And then we're also asking for the board to authorize the director and legal counsel to sign such amended purchase agreements.
Very good. Any comments from the commissioners?
If I understand you right, this will close the deal.
I believe so. Yes.
As best you can.
Yes.
I think you might have just jinxed it, Mike, but okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, okay, bring it back to the commissioners. A motion at this time would be appropriate.
I move that we approve the amendment to the purchase agreement on 2520 Old Mill Road and authorize the director to sign on behalf of the.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Carrie, would you pull the vote, please?
Commissioner Tompkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Perino?
Yes, I'm happy this is done.
Commissioner Inscore?
Double jinx. Yes.
Chair Short?
That's easy. I could have said jinxed it twice, but yes. Yes, let's move on to that.
I'm searching down another.
Long time.
Tony did a yes for Kira too. Okay, item 7.2, discussion of possible approval of side letter from SEIU 1021 representing employees of the Delaware Solid Waste Management Authority, increasing wages by 2.5% to match comparable wages and steps for Delaware County SEIU miscellaneous employees to be effective starting with the first complete pay period in July 2023. We've talked about this before, and I want to read our action from June of 2022. That was agree to extend the memorandum of understanding between Delaware Solid Waste Management Authority and SEIU Local 1021 dated July 21st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021. I misread that, through June 30th, 2023, incorporating the following changes for all employees covered by this MOU who are employed by the Solid Waste Management Authority. So if it says we're covering all employees, why are we needing to come back to, I'm sorry, we just talked about this a little bit ago, but I'm still confused as to why we need to take this action today.
My understanding, sir, was that the action that was taken then was not specific as to which salary schedule was being referred to. And since that, since that time, essentially the county has several salary schedules. And so we need to specify and adopt the second page there, which gives the specific and SWAMA classifications and eliminates any potential confusion as to which ranges and steps are being referred to.
Oh, understood. In the second part of that, it mentioned identical ranges and steps. Or match those adopted by Delaware County for identical ranges and steps. And we don't have identical ranges and steps. Is that where we're at?
That is true.
Okay.
The county does not have a single range and step sheet. And so we need to identify which one we were matching.
Very good. So just as a little bit of history for those who may tune in later, the county, SEIU miscellaneous employees received a 2.5% COLA in March, am I correct? March of this past year. So we are simply proposing, upon approval of this board, that we match that set raise. I'll ask for any public comment. Any public? No public still. Okay. Back to the commission. Is there any comments or questions?
Just one, just to make sure that we're clear. We did not make this adjustment then.
That's correct.
So we're retroactively this back to when we would have approved it, or are we starting it?
No, this is starting the first pay period in the coming fiscal year.
We're in the
July 2023,
Okay.
and it is not a retroactive pay.
Okay, so this
Just matching.
starts with this month.
That's correct. So, just for those of you who may not know, there's been a tradition that the authorities' ranges and steps fall into some correlation with the county's ranges and steps. Should this agency, as all human resource services are provided by the county, it just makes everybody's life a little simpler to have our system fold into their system in a coherent way.
Very good. So a motion would be appropriate at this time, unless there's any other questions or comments.
Chair, I make a motion that we approve the attached side letter with SEIU 1021 and adopt the range and step adjustments described on the following page, equivalent to a 2.5% increase starting with the first complete pay period in 2023.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Carrie, will you pull that vote, please?
Commissioner Tompkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Bruno?
Yes.
Commissioner Iscore?
Yes.
Chair Short?
Yes. One last bit of business. Bob, we just came out of closed session. Do we have any items to report out from there?
No items to report from closed session as we speak. My understanding there's going to be a further closed session.
We are going to resume in
So
closed
that
session.
there will be an additional report when you reconvene after that.
Very good. Okay. So
And by the way, just for the record, the subject matter of the pending closed session, the one that's you're going to return to, is identical to the original closed session.
very good. Thank you, Bob, for that clarification. So we are going to adjourn this open session until the next special meeting on.
No, you're going to reconvene after
Well,
closed
I'm
session.
going to I'm sorry. think about, gonna reconvene after closed session and report out if there are any items to report out. And after that, we will adjourn until August 8th, right here. Thank you all for helping out.
Kira, do you have anything to be signed before we?
Yes, sure do.
Yesterday.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
I'm sure we could start out dancing around all of this.
I got one.